Tonight we're going to talk about a story that takes place in another country, Pakistan. It's actually one that I've never heard of before. Brittany found it, and we just thought it was pretty cool. So we were going to talk about that. First, I would just like to say welcome to our new subscribers. We got a couple more over the past couple of weeks. So thank you guys so much for joining us in our storytelling of murders.
Murder mysteries.
Okay. So our killer tonight, his name is Javed Iqbal. And there's not a whole bunch known about him. And I don't know if it's because it's a Pakistani related murder and there's just not a bunch of information. But I mean, to me, this is a pretty big case as to like how many people he actually killed.
Died,
and so I found it kind of odd that there wasn't a ton of information on it.
I think it's probably just because the media is not like a really big thing in Pakistan for at least this type of stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
So I don't think that like it is here, like people are all obsessed about going to the court cases and reading everything that they can about the case, and I just don't think that's how that is there. I think they're very like tight-lipped, hush-hushed about their crimes and sentencing and
I agree. I did forget to tell you guys what we're having. So tonight we're not doing a meal because the story is actually going to be very short. So I made heavenly blueberry and cream angel food delight, something like that. And I can't even speak tonight. So it's just basically, we've had this before in some of our previous videos. So it's just blueberries, cream cheese, angel food cake, and homemade whipped cream. So that's that.
I request this a lot because I love it.
It's really good. All right. So Javed was born in Pakistan in 1956. He was the 6th of 8 children, so that's a lot of kids. And you'd have to kind of imagine that probably there was some kind of molestation or some kind of something going on within for him to turn out to be the way that he is or was. So anyways, he attended the government Islamia college, and he was considered to be just a mediocre student. So nobody who, stood out above and beyond just went to be there, I guess. In 1985 and 1990, he did have some complaints against him for sodomy, and like he had been arrested for it, but they never actually charged him or convicted him of these crimes. And I'm assuming probably because the victims didn't want to go to court, or I don't know how it works in Pakistan. But that's just kind of what I was thinking. So they couldn't charge him if the victims weren't gonna testify.
Yeah.
So, but during his like when he was arrested, he did come out and he did say that the police abused him and used force on him, and so that kind of foreshadows into the rest of the story.
Yeah. So in December of 1999, Javed surrendered himself to the Pakistani authorities, stating that he had murdered over 100 boys from ages 6 to 16. Most of his victims were all homeless children, beggars, and just kids that lived out on the street, didn't have any home and didn't have parents, didn't have anybody that would miss them. He would lure them to his home in Lahore, Pakistan. He would then rape, strangle, dismember their bodies, and then dissolve the pieces of their bodies in acid.
Where does one get?
That's what I want to know.
Hydrochloric acid.
And I've thought about this before, because in other cases that we've obviously I've read other things that people have dissolved bodies in acid. Yeah. Like, where do you just get giant vats of acid?
I've watched Breaking Bad, and in like the first season or whatever, they that's how they dispose of a body.
And they poured it in the tub.
Right, but I thought that because he was a chemist, he was able to make it. You know,
yeah, I think so.
So maybe if you have enough of a chemistry background or know chemistry well, like maybe you could make it yourself.
Anyways,
I don't know. We don't know where he got the acid from.
I don't think you can order it from Amazon.
Probably not in Pakistan.
So, don't know where they got that from. Anyway, so after he would dissolve these bodies in these vats of acid, like these big drums, he would then dump the remains in the river. He kept extremely detailed records of every child that he killed. This just included names, ages, and photographs of everybody. He was extremely OCD when it came to keeping records of people that he killed. Like Ashley had mentioned before, he claimed that his motive for doing this was because when he was questioned before about sodomy, like, you know, performing sodomy, that he was abused by the authorities. Which, what do you expect if you're going into a police station because you are being questioned about raping little boys' buttholes? Like,
right.
What do you think the police are going to do?
Well, what I don't understand
good job, guy.
What I don't understand is he says that it's for the revenge on the police assaulting him.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, police brutality is a thing, and it should not be a thing, and it, you know, it sucks. But he was already raping boys prior to this arrest. So no, don't you try to bring police brutality into this, and that's why you killed all these other homeless children.
They're gonna bring you in.
No.
They're gonna pat you on the back, give you a cup of coffee, and just be like, it's okay that you did this. No. You're lucky that they did not do worse to you.
Yeah.
So when the police searched his home, they found blood stains everywhere, like in the entire house. Didn't even look like it had been tried to clean up or anything. It just, you know, blood stains everywhere. There were chains in the middle of the floor that he would use to keep his victims there so he could sodomize them, and then use those exact chains to then strangle them. He had photographs of children in bags. Like, once they were dead, he would just take pictures of them in bags. Like, fucking weirdo. He also had bundles of children's clothing, like just giant bags of children's clothing. And in another video that I watched, they found 70 pairs of kid shoes. And the only thing he obviously killed over 100 kids. Like, he admitted that. I'm thinking maybe all the kids didn't have shoes.
Possibly.
Because they were homeless. And I think that the shoes was one of the things that he had kept as like a trophy.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Potentially, yeah.
So he had all those shoes. There was 2 vats of acid still at his property with dissolving bodies in them. And I think DNA tests were done on the remains in the vats, and there was 4 different DNAs in there at that time. So,
wow.
He said that he left them there for the police to find because he was just like, here's everything. I'm just going to hand you it on a silver platter. Like, here's all the records that I wrote on everything.
Because you all abused me.
Yeah. I want everybody to know what I did and why I did it, and I'm not ashamed of it, pretty much. Things were, like, neatly labeled. Like, I really think this guy had OCD.
Yeah, I think so, too.
He had little pamphlets written, like, to separate, like, where all the shoes, he had names written on it.
Yeah, like tags and stuff.
Yeah, all the pictures, he had little handwritten notes on there. Like, dude was weird. Let's see. In his confession letter that he wrote, he said that he intended to kill himself in the Ravi River, which is where I think he disposed of the liquefied remains of the bodies.
He lived very, very close to it.
Yeah,
I think.
So when the police were searching for him, because he was, you know, there was a manhunt for a while for him, and when they were searching for him, they dragged the river that he said he was going to kill himself in several times, and no bodies were ever found. He later recanted his confession, said that he didn't do any of this and he just fabricated this story because he wanted to bring light to the homeless children problem in Pakistan.
How do you explain the 2 children, dissolving in a vat of acid in your apartment or your house or whatever?
Yeah.
You just fabricated that as well? Okay.
Let's see. This was the largest manhunt in Pakistan history that took over a month to find him. He actually turned himself into a newspaper station because he was afraid of what was going to happen to him if he turned himself into the police. And while at this station, he said, "I am Javed Iqbal, killer of 100 children. I hate this world. I am not ashamed of my actions, and I am ready to die. I have no regrets. I've killed 100 children."
I have no regrets.
Yeah, I have no regrets.
Like, like he tried to say, I made this whole story up, and then now, like, you have no regrets. Why would you say that you made the story up if you had no regrets? But, okay. So there was no actual forensic evidence that linked him to the crimes. And there were no other bodies that were ever found. So
other than the ones that were in the vats already.
So only the 2 that were in the vats, and then I guess with the DNA testing, and they found 4 other types of DNA in there. But he did have 4 roommates, which was kind of interesting because all of these roommates were like basically between the age of 13 and 17. And why is he living with a bunch of teenagers? And if they were accomplices, was he abusing them? Like, was he basically holding them captive? Like, I have tons of questions about this case because there's no information on these accomplices.
There's a few pictures, but that's it. And we know their ages, but
there's nothing like, where did they come from? Were they runaways too? Are they like kind of in a cult now because Javed has brainwashed them? Like,
I think
what was going on with that?
I think he groomed them for years, and they just thought that this behavior,
was
him
normal.
bringing home boys and, raping and murdering them, they just probably thought it was normal.
I guess so. So the 4 boys were arrested, and a couple of days after the arrest, one of them died in police custody. It is speculated that it was due to police brutality, but at the autopsy, it basically just said he jumped from a window. Whether he was pushed out of a window, whether he did it himself, nobody knows for sure. So there's that. And then there was another one of the accomplices that actually ended up hanging himself in his cell the same night that Javed committed suicide. So after Javed turned himself in, he told the newspaper, I fear for my life. So he wanted to basically make it public. So if he died abruptly, then it could be speculated that it was because of police brutality. So he was convicted of, he was convicted of the murders, and he was sentenced to death. And the judge who did the sentencing is one badass, and I think that we need to have more judges like him here in America. So what was his, other than aside from his death sentence, how did he die? Or how was he supposed to die? He was to die in the same manner as he killed his victims, which was strangulation, cutting the bodies up into 100 pieces, and dissolving them in acid, all of which would be done in front of the victim's family.
Yep.
So, yeah, I say we do that here in America.
Fuck yeah.
Because I really feel like a bunch of these fucking pussies out there would think twice about molesting a child.
Eye for an eye. And
Exactly.
I believe that for a long time.
I agree. So Javed, he actually ended up hanging himself in his cell after he was, after he found out that this is how he was supposed to die. So my question is, did he actually kill himself? or were the police involved with it? And now we are in Pakistan. Like I said earlier, police brutality does happen. It happens all over the place. But I kind of feel like in Pakistan, it's probably going to be a little bit worse. I feel like there's more corruption that goes on, especially, I mean, because it's a Middle Eastern country. No offense to people from the Middle East, but not exactly a stable part of the world. And if he did kill himself, was it because he was afraid of dying the same way that he killed his victims? You know, like I
think he killed himself because he was a fucking coward.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the only person that I can think of the murders that we've done is Wesley Allen Dodd, when he's like, I know I'm gonna do it again. You need to fucking kill me.
Yeah.
Like he took responsibility for his actions. And then you've got somebody like Javed here who's killed and raped hundreds of boys, and what he gets off by killing himself because he's too afraid.
So they ended up burying him, and they had to put a cage around his Are you serious? Around his plot, because it was being vandalized,
desecrated.
Constantly.
Oh.
Yeah, because especially in Pakistan and most Middle Eastern countries, like they are extremely against any form of sodomy, whether it be willing or non-willing. And
well, I think that's false.
What? No.
Yeah. From stories that I've heard about people on deployment over there. And,
really?
Homosexuality is, just from what I've heard, I'm not going to say who I've heard it from, but yeah, homosexuality is men are for having sex for pleasure, women are for reproduction. That's it.
But I think like maybe it obviously it happens a lot, and I'm sure that's a thing over there. But do you think like in the law enforcement it's like that? Or?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that if it's part of your culture, anybody can do it.
Well, I know for sure they're not down with the raping little kids.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Nobody's down for that.
Nobody's down for that, except for California.
But people get harsh sentences over there for things like that.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah. Exactly. And the same with Japan, too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know. Like, just, come on, we got to take a page from their book, because I wouldn't, that wouldn't, dying the same way that your victims died.
Everybody should have to do that. You're right, though. Like, I think if that was a thing over here, I think that would cut down a lot of crimes.
I think so. Like
if you steal something, you get your fucking hand cut off. Like,
I mean, they do that in countries.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there'd be less bullshit over here if we just did to them as they did to others, and start cutting off hands and shit and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, man.
So, yeah, that's our story for tonight. It was in Pakistan. Didn't mean to offend anybody if we did, but that's just how we feel about things. So,
yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed the short video. We'll be back in, 2 weeks? Things are going to be kind of odd because of timing with Christmas and everything like that. Like, and last weekend was Thanksgiving, so that's why we didn't record last week. But we should record before Christmas,
yeah,
right?
I think we're going to record the week before Christmas.
Yeah, the week before Christmas. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, which is crazy that Christmas is this close. Yeah. So,
this
happy holidays.
Flown by. Happy holidays, guys.
Flown by, considering the fact that we've been in a fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
And, you know, America has basically gone to shit.
Yeah.
So, yay. Okay. You've been watching the Murder Mukbang Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Brittany.
You kill them.
We grill them.
I don't know why we just introduced ourselves again. I'm so sorry about that. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you later.